Hi, everybody. This is AJ Bialik with Marshall Reddick Real Estate. This is our 1031 exchange webinar on how to sell without paying taxes utilizing tax-deferred 1031 exchanges. Hope everyone is making it home safe, driving through this weather if you're in California. And we're going to get started here in about 3 minutes. We're just going to allow everybody to show up on the webinar here, and we'll get going here in about 2 to 3 minutes. Thanks so much. All righty, like I said, we're just waiting for a few people to, give everyone a chance to get onto the webinar here. We'll be starting in about a minute or two for those of you who just logged in. So hang tight, we'll get going here in about a minute. All righty, we'll get going here. Like I said, my name's AJ Bialik. I'm a real estate advisor here at Marshall Reddick, and this is our 1031 exchange webinar on how to sell without paying taxes utilizing our tax-deferred 1031 exchanges. A little about myself. My name's AJ Bialik. I'm a Southern California native. I'm a licensed realtor and I'm a real estate advisor here at Marshall Reddick. I went to school at Concordia University in Irvine here in California. I have a background in commercial real estate. I started as an office run in commercial real estate about 8 years ago and never looked back ever since. I transitioned to residential real estate a few years after that and been enjoying my time here at Marshall Reddick for a while. I'm intimately familiar with all the Marshall Reddick locations and markets that we're in California, Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, and I'm an active real estate investor myself. I'm invested in our mortgage fund, and my family owns a few properties throughout the nation as well. So really cool to work at a company like Marshall Reddick where you can really practice what you preach and learn all the ins and outs of real estate investing. So who is Marshall Reddick? First off, we are a real estate brokerage. We allow people to buy and sell homes, investors to buy and sell investment properties, and we do so not only in California, but throughout the entire nation. We have a footprint in Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, but really can help you out in any market that you so choose throughout the nation. We're also a property manager, so we help landlords manage their properties in California, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky. Currently, we have brick and mortar offices in those specific markets, and we currently manage just over 3,000 doors nationwide. We're a private money lender. Private money, that means so normally people will get a conventional mortgage when they're purchasing a primary residence or an investment property. But if you own over 10 conventional loans to your name, you no longer can get a conventional loan. So you have to look for private money at that point. So we lend out private money to people in that situation, people who are maybe utilizing their solo 401k or solo IRA to purchase an investment property. We can lend money to them as well. And we can also lend money to fix and flippers, people looking for bridge loans, bridge financing to close on an asset immediately. So it's really a cool tool that we have at Marshall Reddick that kind of goes hand in hand with all of our investors. We also have an investment fund. Our investment fund is a first trust deed mortgage fund that only invests in non-owner occupied first trust deed mortgages. And it's more of like an index fund for first trust deed mortgages where you can put some money into the fund and you have a return that you get every single year. It's been an 8.6% annualized return since its inception in 2017, and you get paid out every quarter on that return. So you're right around 2.25% every single quarter on your money. So what's our investment methodology here at Marshall Reddick? Well, first off, it's all about you and your goal setting. So what's your goal? Are you looking to buy your first property? Do you already have a portfolio? Are you looking at 1031 exchange into something bigger and better? What are your goals? And then the second is evaluate your options. Based off your goals, we're going to be able to give you some options and look at what's the best option for you, what your time frame is, and set your criteria, identify the markets that you want to be in, and then introduce you to all the key players. We have a really large tool belt here at Marshall Reddick with lenders, contractors, 1031 exchange accommodators like Aaron Crowley here, who's going to be speaking, insurance agents, you name it. We have a huge tool belt of people to help you out. So we always like to start with you and your goals, evaluate your options, figure out your time frame, set your criteria, look at what markets you want to be in, and then introduce you to those key players to help you achieve your goals. Here's a look at our national footprint. Like I mentioned, we have brick and mortar offices in all these highlighted areas. So that's going to be Orange County, Los Angeles, Riverside, the Bay Area, Central Texas, all throughout in Austin, New Braunfels, San Antonio, Houston, Southwest Florida in Cape Coral and Fort Myers, Clarksville, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, and then a little area next to Clarksville, Tennessee is called Oak Grove, Kentucky. And we have brick and mortar property management, boots on the ground in all those markets, which is really a game changer for us here at Marshall Reddick, given that, in the past, I'd say pre-2017, we would be helping a lot of investors purchase these out-of-state properties, but we were having to refer them to third-party property management. And starting our own property management has been the best thing that we've ever done, because now we really can help control and make sure that the client experience for our investors is the best that they could possibly get. And it's been the biggest game changer lately since 2017 when we started our own property management. So what makes a good market? Why do we identify those specific markets that were highlighted in that slide before? Well, first, obviously, we look at the job market. For example, in San Antonio, Texas, you have a Tesla plant that was just built. You have a data center for Microsoft. You have a distribution center for Amazon. Those are going to be creating a lot of jobs in the area, or they're going to be transferring people that already work at that company to go work in that area. And typically they're going to get a relocation clause where they can, help them out with a little bit of rent or purchasing a property, et cetera. So we really look at a growing job market. We want to see a low vacancy rate. We want to see economic diversity. Is there a university nearby? What's going on with those jobs and what type of people are going to be there? Is it affordable housing? Is it landlord friendly? We have obviously, we have offices here in Newport Beach and LA and the Bay Area, but California is not always the most landlord friendly state. Dealing with tenants in Texas and Florida and Tennessee, it's a lot easier, a lot more landlord friendly. And we really look at strong education. I just mentioned that earlier. Is there universities nearby? Are there good schools? Are there good, school districts that people are going to feel comfortable moving to and having their kids go to public school around there? And then lastly is reliable property management. That more or less, now that we manage in most of our markets, we are a very reliable, good property manager. I like to say that our property management is built by investors for investors. So we're all investors ourselves. We know what property management we like to have and perform with. And so we tailor that to what our clients' needs are going to be, since most of us at Marshall Reddick are investors ourselves. So on to 1031 exchanging. Just wanted to bring up a example of an exchange that I helped someone do earlier actually last year. So I helped my client Sharon. She purchased this property in 2018, the one on the left side of the screen. It was a little townhome in Laguna Niguel. She bought it for $650,000, all cash. And when she first bought it, we rented it out for $3,000 a month back in 2018, and managed it for her a little bit. And we got those rents up to $3,750 in 2022. And when that tenant decided to move out, we were really assessing the property. You know, what rents can you get, and what's the property worth right now? And based on her goals and what she was wanting, she really wanted a lot of cash flow. You know, she got a lot of appreciation in the property. It went up about 300,000 in equity, but the monthly cash flow was pretty much capped out at, you know, maybe $4,000 a month that she was going to get. So we looked at 1031 exchange options, and given that she was all cash and she had 300 grand of equity in the home, we put it on the market. We ended up selling that home for 949,000, and we ended up 1031 exchanging into 2 of these properties that I have on the right-hand side of the screen. So she bought 2 different brand new duplexes in Samuel Court in New Braunfels at the end of last year, and each of those properties were about 530,000 in change. And each property brings in $3,600 a month in rental income, so $1,800 per unit. If you times 1,800 by 4, you're at about $7,200 a month of rental income. She only had to take out a small loan. As I mentioned, she was all cash, so she transferred that $950 over. The purchase price was for both of those combined was a little over $1 million. So she got some financing, maybe, you know, $150,000 altogether to finance these properties. And at the time, these builders actually, with our preferred lender, Reed Hazard at CMG Mortgage, the builders had a very lucrative financing option where they had a forward commitment with Reed, our lender. So she was able to get 5.25% interest rate financing on that small amount that she was leveraging on her loan. And now she's bringing in, I'd say, you know, she's bringing in $7,200 a month of rental income. Obviously, you have to deduct whatever your property taxes are, but I'm sure she's cash flowing, you know, well over $5,000 a month, where this property in Laguna Niguel, you know, it was a great property. It did her great, but I'm sure with $3,750 plus you're paying an HOA payment, your property taxes, your insurance, etc., she was cash flowing maybe $2,500 a month. So it's just an example of what you can do with 1031 exchanging, and how you can really, you know, not have to pay Uncle Sam in your taxes, and leg up to a better situation where you can be achieving your goals, which in Sharon's case was to make more cash flow with the money that she had invested. So enough about me and Marshall Reddick. I'm going to introduce Aaron Crowley with Asset Preservation. Asset Preservation is our preferred 1031 exchange accommodator. We have done thousands of 1031 exchanges with their company, and she's going to take it from here and let you know all the ins and outs of 1031 exchanging. So let's give it up for Aaron.
Hi, guys. So I love my job for the reasons AJ just said, that I get to help people make their investments even better. And I'm so glad you guys are on today, because I can't tell you how many calls a day I get with people saying, I wish I would have known about this earlier. And boy, I could have used this last year when I paid all those taxes. So at least you're learning it now. And it is a brilliant provision in the code that allows us to keep building money for ourselves and for our next generation. So it's a great tool. So I'm going to probably not tell you everything there is to know about 1031 exchanges, but in an hour, but I will give you the best parts of it. So one of the parts of investing is paying those taxes when you sell. And I swear a lot of my clients don't remember that they've got depreciation recapture tax at 25%, and the federal tax is either 15 or 20%. that they've got the net investment income tax, which is a 3.8% that hits at a certain level, and state tax. So there's actually 4 levels of taxes when you sell an investment property. I mean, it's a good thing because you're writing off that depreciation recapture, but when you sell or that depreciation, when you sell, you're bringing it all back and you are paying taxes on it. So those 4 levels in a 1031 exchange get deferred. And that's one of the exciting parts of it. So this is the provision. Takes me a little bit. This is a provision in the code. It only changed slightly in the past 100 years. In 2018, it changed to be real property from property. That's the only change that this provision has made since 1921 when it was put into the code. And this is what I'm going to what we go off of. But there's been a lot of not so much changes to the code, but what we call provisions and proclamations that change it a little bit. But what it was put in place to do was, if you are reinvesting in your company, your factory, your ranch, your farm, your hair salon, your real estate office, as long as you keep reinvesting, the IRS says that they're not going to recognize the exchange at the income coming in. They're going to like put blinders on and not see it until down the road when you put money in your pocket. So the whole provision is based on the continuity of investor. Maybe you have, as AJ was saying, that nice little property in California, but you exchange it for 2 properties in Texas. It doesn't have to look the same. It doesn't have to be in the same state. You're just still an investor. Your investment just looks different, and it's better for you. It's making you more money in the long run. The more money you make, the more money that the IRS makes. So it's a win-win all the way around. So the pros of it is, purely being able to defer that tax, defer it down the road until you retire, defer it until you leave the house feet first and it goes to your heirs, but just to continually defer it. And that allows you to do the second part, which is wealth accumulation. Because instead of paying taxes each time you sell, you get to use that money, go to your bank, get it leveraged, and buy bigger, better properties, more producing properties, easier to manage properties that are closer to you, whatever you need, being able to use that little bit for leverage. So if you can imagine, each time you did, as you sold and you paid the taxes, you bought a new one, if you hadn't paid the taxes and you leverage that when my clients are exchanging, each time they're just building and building and building at a much faster rate than if they sold, paid the taxes, and bought again. So it is amazing using that leverage to accumulate wealth quicker. And that's what we're looking for, to set up something for our families and their families. Diversification, again, with AJ's example, they're in California, and California has seen some amazing appreciation, but I can take my money from California and I can put it into Texas or somewhere else where I can ride that appreciation train again. I can take it to an area like Tennessee, where they're seeing maybe not as much appreciation, but they're seeing great cash flows. So the diversification is, I can go from any state to any state. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, you're going to ask if you can go outside of the country. No, you can go to U.S. Virgin Islands or Guam, but you're going to stay within the United States, but you can go anywhere. And so, just like Marshall Reddick, we are a national company. We do exchanges from every state to every state. But you can also diversify. So you can diversify by state or area, in the city, out of the city, in the rural, out of the rural. You can also diversify by asset class. And a lot of people start with that single family rental, and then they move to a duplex, just like AJ was saying. And then her next move might be to a triplex or a fourplex or a small apartment building. And then from that small apartment building, we go to a triple net. And then, so that's kind of progression. And you can start over again. You can take your triple net and now exchange into a ranch, or start over with a vacation home. So you can go all the way across from land to single family to residential to multifamily to to commercial, industrial, all those things. And then the real beauty of doing exchanges is if you're like us, we're just buying real estate because this is what we do. This is what provides for us a living, and this is what provides for the family. So long-term ownership needs, we still have a step up in basis, which means that as you build your portfolio, you're going to keep exchanging. And then finally, you maybe live in that dream house, or you get your whole portfolio. And now you're going to leave it to your heirs at a step up in basis. So all those taxes actually go away at that point. So that's one of the beauties. So you'll hear defer until you die, or exchange until you expire, or kick the can down the road till you kick the can. So there's all these great reasons, but mostly if you're doing exchanges and you're investing, you're looking to the future, and each time you're reinvesting more and more and more. Because when you learn with exchanges, you're always reinvesting pretty close to what you just sold for. So that's kind of the beauty of it. It's also tougher because you're always buying more. So these are the cons. You've got some rules and regulations, and if we didn't have those, I wouldn't have a job. So I'm going to go through those. Replacement property is you're going to lower your basis, so that gain is not going away. It's not tax avoidance, it's tax deferral. So each time you buy a property, that gain from the first property follows you. So if you've exchanged quite a bit, you want to continue to exchange just because you've built up quite a bit of gain in that property. It's lack of liquidity because, it's hard when you go to a closing and you're like, oh, but I want that money in my pocket. You don't get that money in your pocket. It must go into more property. And recognizing losses, you want to use your loss. If for any reason you make a loss on something, God forbid, you want to use those. You want to recognize those because they go against your gain in the future. Maybe there'll be higher taxes in the future. I don't know. That could be a con. And again, it's just deferring it. At some point when you put money in your pocket, the IRS is going to be looking for it. So the basics, I'm going to go past this because that one didn't get all the way done. Oh, it's loading. So the basic requirements, I'm just going to touch on these and then I'll touch on them a little bit more. So one of the main parts is when you're doing exchanges, and this is one of the things that's really important, is that the rules that were put in place created a qualified intermediary, which is what I am, and we have to be in place in a 1031 exchange. Unless you're just swapping with somebody, you have to have us in the middle, and we have to be in place before you close, because you all hear that you can't touch the money, and touching the money means signing on that bottom line without the QI name and having those funds go anywhere near your accounts or something like that. That would destroy the exchange. So we get in the middle, we assign onto the contract, we hold those funds. You've got to keep the tax-paying entity consistent. So you can't go from a trust or from an LLC to a partnership to a corporation, everything across the board. We need to keep the tax-paying entity the same. So if you're in an LLC that files taxes, that's what you want to buy in. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but basically we want to keep everything consistent. The IRS doesn't like any inconsistencies or any sudden changes right before an exchange. The property qualifications, I will talk a little bit more about this, but the beauty of that is like-kind property means it has to be an investment property to you. It can be trade or business, it can be your office, it can be your ranch, your farm, something that you use in trade or business, or it can be your real estate investments like we're talking about here. But what it can't be is a second home that you don't rent out, that you just use with friends and family, or your primary home, okay? So those two things don't count as like-kind. Almost every other kind of property does to each other, so it's very broad. The requirement is you're always taking that money. You're basically buying up. It's not $1 more, but you're basically taking all the cash you walk away with, replacing that debt. So if you sell for $1 million, you're out there looking for a property close to $1 million or more. You get to pull off commissions and title fees and my fee and other fees, but pretty much you're going to be looking for property very similar to what you just sold. And the timeline, that's the kicker. You only have 45 days from the day you close on property one, the one you're selling, to the day to tell us what property or properties you want to buy. Just 45 days, they're calendar days, they go quickly. So that's where Marshall Reddick comes in. That's where you need the pros, because it isn't easy to find property, but if you've got pros, it is. You then, from the day you sell that property, you've got a whole 180 days to close on it, but not a day beyond that. So you must identify in the first 45, close, and I'll go over these again. And then we've got identification rules. Let me get a little deeper into these and we'll go through those identification rules. And AJ, stop me if I look like I'm going to run out of time. I think I click on that. Okay, so this, I'm just going to go fast again. You can't touch the money, so make sure you set up the exchange prior to closing. Because if you don't have the QI involved, you don't have an exchange. Okay? And so typically at contracts, and we're going to get involved. The exchange entities, we just got to keep everything consistent. Like I said, so if it's an LLC that sells, it's an LLC that buys. If it's a partnership that sells, we want to keep that as the buyer, even if it's husband and wife. So depending on what state you live in, my job is to work with you and make sure that we're keeping all that consistent. And the last part of it and is in that code is a like kind. So like kind doesn't mean it's got to be residence for residential, or I sold a condo, I've got to buy a condo. I can sell a condo and buy an office building. I can sell an office building and buy a farm. I can sell a farm and buy oil rights or a vacation home, or I can sell something in Minnesota and buy something in Florida. It doesn't have to look the same. It just has to be investment property. Okay, and so again, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It can be improved or unimproved, but it does have to be an investment property for you. So that's kind of the best part about it, is it's very broad, and we can go from our single family, eventually end up with our apartment building. So that's perfect. So these are things that don't qualify: the primary home, the second home. If I'm going to do some fix and flipping, it's not going to qualify. So fix and flips don't qualify because the IRS says they have to be investment. And for them, an investment is something that you've held for at least 2 years, and something that if it's rent-outable, you need to have rented it out. If you didn't rent out that lovely house, it's a second home. It's not going to qualify. So things that don't qualify: primary, second homes, anything you're going to flip, anything you're going to turn, and partnership interests. I put that in there because sometimes you want to take just your little interest in your partnership and do an exchange, but we can't do that because you only have a personal property interest. So we need to break up the partnership. There's ways to do that in a whole nother webinar. But we want to have the intent to hold for investment. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes COVID hit. Sometimes things change. So that's why we have to have the intent, because intent and reality are not always the same thing. So that's where we come in, is kind of help you through, can I still do that? I meant to rent it, but this happened. So there's a lot of gray areas in this. I put this one in just to show you that sometimes we use this primary home exclusion that you guys have and your split treatment. If you guys are sitting in your primary house and you have an ADU, you've got a mother-in-law property, you rent out part of it, you can take that part of it and do an exchange on just that and use your primary residence exclusion for the primary. And so AJ can help you find something for just that portion of that property when you sell it. So that's kind of an exciting thing that you can also do. But I want to get through all the timing. So the exchange equation is what the toughest part is, because a lot of times you think you're just going to take that cash and throw it into something else. But what the rule actually says is that you have to take all your net proceeds, all the cash, after commissions, my fee, title fees. Those are the fees that you can come off of. So those closing costs, and I'll show you those. Closing costs come off. But if I sell my house for $900, my investment property, and I end up with $540 in my pocket, that's what I need to put into another property, that $540. But I can't forget about that debt that I just released. I just released a $300,000 mortgage. So I have to also make up that debt. So I need to bring that into the next property or properties as well. I can either do it with new debt, or I can come up with cash. So those are the two rules for what we need to have for full tax deferral. I'm going to show you this slide because it puts it a little bit easier. Oops, too fast. Go back. Okay. So if you're selling your property for 900, and you're like, how much do I really need to buy in order to have no taxes and not spend much anymore? Then you're going to take what you sold it for minus those closing costs, and you come up with 840. And it's pretty much the same number as taking all of your cash and the debt is 840. So I sell for 900. That's what I'm looking for, something for 840 or more. And that something can be one property. As AJ did, he sold 2 properties. That could be 5 properties. Because if you're going from California to Tennessee, the property values are going to be different, and you're going to be able to buy more. So you can sell many properties, and you can buy many properties. It doesn't matter. You can sell 1 by 12. You can sell 12 and buy 1. So that's pretty exciting. When you are buying lower, if you're going to go down and put money in your pocket, that's what we call boot, and that's what's open to taxes. So in this situation, we sold for 900, but we only wanted to buy a $700,000 house. So we took 100,000, put it in our pocket, and we got a little bit less of a mortgage. So that leaves us with exposure of 140,000. Is that wrong to do? I don't know. At this point, now I have to ask the exchanger more questions. If the basis in that, if the gain on that relinquished property is 800,000, and I can get what I want and only pay 140,000 in gain, that's great. That's a good day. But if my gain on that relinquished property, I paid 800 for it, and I have 100,000 in gain, then doing the exchange isn't going to help me any, because I'm not spending enough. So that's my job too, is to walk you through these numbers and let you know what you need to buy and to kind of achieve your goals. Sometimes your goal is to pay some tax and reinvest the rest. It all works, but we want to make sure that it works the way you want it to. This one I'm going to throw in there because a lot of times my clients will say, all I have to do is buy more, don't I? I have to spend more money. I sell for 900, I buy for $1 million. Why doesn't that work? And in the last few years, when debt was cheap or cheaper, a lot of people wanted bigger mortgages. So even if I bought more, I sell for 9, I bought $1 million property. If I put that 140 in my pocket, it's still exposed to taxes, because I didn't do rule number 1. I didn't reinvest all my net proceeds. So you want to reinvest all your cash in first, cover that mortgage second, and that's going to give you full tax deferral. So you want to be careful. You don't want to, even if you bought more, you don't want to over leverage. Now, if you want to leverage, all you have to do is buy everything in cash, close out the exchange, finish the exchange, then go to your lender and pull all that money right back out again. So you have to complete the exchange with all that cash going into the next properties. Doesn't want to have to stay there if you don't want it to. But if you want it to, fine. These are the closing costs. These are the only costs that come off of the amount that you sell for. You don't get to pull off what you put into the roof. You don't get to pull off what you did to stage it. Those costs don't come off here. Okay, so these are the closing costs that lower your capital gain, and they actually lower how much you have to reinvest. These are the exchange expenses. So as I said, the gain goes into the next property and into the next property and into the next property. So how it does that, the easiest way to look at it is the gain I have on one property. If I sold for 1.2, 400 is my adjusted basis. My gain is 800. Now I buy something for 2.3. My 800 gain lowered my basis. So it's as if I paid 1.5 for that property, not 2.3. So if I sold my new property the next day for $1 over what I paid for it, I didn't make $1. I made $801. Okay. So if you do that more and more, you can see that your gain just keeps going in and lowering that basis. So again, it doesn't go away. It keeps going in. So these are the different types of exchanges, and the two-party swap That's how it all started, but we don't see those very often. That's if AJ has a property that I want and I have a property that he wants and they're both the same price, we can swap. But otherwise, if there's a third party involved or extra money involved, you've got to get a QI involved. You've got to get a qualified intermediary involved. And we get in the middle and we make sure everything works. Multiple property exchanges, sell a lot, buy one, sell a lot, buy a lot. But if they're in one exchange, the first one closes, the first one starts to clock. If you're buying 20 properties, you still have only the same clock. You got to buy all those 20 before the 180th day run out. These time frames are really serious. Most everything else we talked about before is gray. They get serious. Parking arrangements, gets into, that's a whole nother webinar. But if for some reason that you have to acquire property first before you sell, we have a buy first, but you can't buy it. You've got to get us involved. We have to set an entity that actually buys it for you. We hold title for you. You have to actually pay for it. An improvement exchange is if you found something in a different state and it needs work, we can do that too, but you can't take title to it yet because it's not worth it. It's not the value you need it to be. So we take title to it, we use your money, you fix it up, then we transfer title. A reverse improvement is just doing both of those together. These are more complex, more costly. Those are ones that you'll want to call me if you have any questions on. They're great to have in your toolkit, but they're not the run-of-the-mill one. Okay, the run-of-the-mill one is this, the delayed exchange. This is kind of garden variety where you're going to get contract, you're going to get the qualified intermediary involved, we're going to get all the paperwork, and one of the pieces of paper says that we're going to assign on to your contract at closing. So we're just magically, temporarily going to become the seller. So we don't ever go on title in these, so you won't see our name in the county records. It's kind of a magic quirk of the IRS that allows us to assign onto that contract, become temporarily the seller on your behalf, hold those funds from the buyer, hold them nice, safe, and secure while the clock starts ticking. So from the day you close, that's day 0, the clock starts ticking for your exchange. It's 180 days. That's it. And they're calendar days. So, and the first 45 is your identification period. So if it's, Lobster Fest or a bad hair day or your birthday or Christmas, it doesn't matter. That 45 days is crucial. That's when you have to tell us what you want to buy. And so that has to be 180 days. On the flip side, with when you're buying properties from Marsha Reddick and you're going out there purchasing, you're going to do the same thing, is that we're going to assign onto that contract as well, and we're going to temporarily become the buyer, and we're going to use your funds to purchase the property or properties that you're buying. So we're in the middle, but still everything's going to get deeded back and forth from you, the taxpayer, you, the exchanger, the seller. And all this happens in 180 days. Now, there are 2 things that will make that 180 days longer, and that is what you guys have, what California has had all year and more of, as many states have. The only thing that will make it longer is a federally declared disaster. So we see those often. You get another 180 days or 120 days if your property that was involved in the exchange was involved in the federally declared disaster or your own property. So always count on it being 180 days. You don't want it to be longer. It can be shorter. If you're buying the end of last year, the day you pay your taxes cuts it short. So anyone who closed last year and in an exchange, you want to make sure you complete your exchange before you file your taxes. This year, we don't have to worry about telling people about that until we hit October. And then we got to remind them to complete the exchange before they file their taxes. Okay, that's something you probably all didn't know. Okay, click. It is very sensitive. I'm almost done, guys, though. I'm going to go back one, maybe. Okay. These are the rules. The rules are something that we will help you through, but the rules are important because they are set in stone. There's 3 rules when you're doing exchange as far as identifying properties in that 45 days. In that 45 days, you can, it's musical chairs, you can identify this, that, and the other thing, but on day 45 at midnight, that's when that list becomes solid. And that's when you've got whatever's on that list, that's all you have to choose from. If they all fall out, doesn't matter. You pay the taxes. You don't get to add anything more. So it's very important. The 3 property rule says that I can, if I sell for 900, I can identify $1 million property or a $20 million property or $900,000 property. It doesn't matter as long as I only identify 3. I can identify one in Texas that I like, one in Tennessee I could live with, and maybe one somewhere else that in Florida that is my backup. So I can identify backups, I can identify 1, I can identify 2 or 3. But if I'm going to be going into an area with lesser priced properties and I want to spread out and buy a bunch of them, I need to identify more than 3. So I'm going to fall into that 200% rule. And that means if I identify 4 or more, I can do that. I can get a list along. I've seen lists at 300, oil well sites. So they can be quite extensive, but you're capped. Now you have to identify, you've got to count up everything on your list. So if you give me a list of 20 properties, and I add up the fair market value of all those properties, it can't be more than 200% of what you sold or more than twice what you sold your property for. So in my example, 900, I can identify as many properties as I want, but it can't, their fair market value can't go over 1.8 million, okay? If for any reason it did, I drop into that dreaded 95% rule that says if I have a list of 20 properties, I must buy 95% of the value of all those properties or I completely fail the exchange. So rarely will you find that. Mostly you're going to be in those 3 property rules, okay? And then the rest of the identification rules is that these came in 1996 and they haven't been changed. So forgive me for using the word telecopy. They didn't call them faxes back then. But so in 1990s, these rules came in. They still have to be in writing. You have to describe that property. It's got to be 123 Main Street. It can't be something great that AJ is going to find for me. It's got to be delivered to QI or to the title company. Hand delivered, mail, telecopied, otherwise sent. Otherwise sent, of course, they're going to fax it to us or email it to us. We're going to make sure that you and your client and whoever's you're doing the exchange is going to have a very easy form to fill out. Here's the number, here's everything where it needs to go. We'll make sure all that's easy. But if you're out elk hunting and it's 11:45 on the 45th day, you can scribble an address in and stick your elk butt or something, and you could do whatever it needs to get that to us by midnight of the 45th day. Midnight 01 is too late. And again, it must be delivered to, the only other people who can accept it is the title company that's involved. Otherwise, your agent, your attorney, your accountant, they can't. You've got to all go to that. So those are the fun parts, the identification rules. When I teach this, a lot of folks will say, how does the IRS know like what I did, what I spent? Did I buy from a relative? Because you can't buy from a relative. How do they know? And I just put this on there because when you're an investor and you're going to be doing exchanges, I think looking at this form and knowing what you're going to report on it is a great thing. It's 2 pages. It's what you or your CPA fills out. It spells out to the IRS what you did. So it's always good to kind of have that in your forefront and know what it's all about. That means everything I have. So I didn't cover absolutely the whole thing. I could talk for 3 or 4 days on exchanges, but that's the basics. And again, it's a brilliant, brilliant tool to use with a good partner like Marsha Reddick to build wealth for yourself and your family. So I'm done, and I guess leave it over to AJ now.
No worries. Thanks so much, Erin. But I just want to give you a round of applause because, it's a lot of information, and thank you for sharing everything. Like Erin said, she could talk for days about this. I'm sure everyone might have some more questions or some more in-depth conversations that they'd like to have pertaining to their particular exchange that they might have in mind. So anytime, feel free to reach out to myself or Aaron, and we can facilitate that conversation.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to go over a couple featured properties that we have here at Marshall Reddick currently that are available in case anyone is looking to exchange into something, and just show you kind of what those numbers would look like. As I mentioned before, we have some very lucrative financing with some builders out in Central Texas currently through Reed Hazard, who's our preferred conventional lender at Marshall Reddick. Reed has probably done over 10,000 loans for all of our clients here at Marshall Reddick for the last 30 years. And Reed has what's called a forward commitment with these builders in Central Texas, where basically the builder is giving Reed's company a certain amount of money to help pay down the purchaser who's purchasing a loan through Reed to pay down their interest rate. So if you look at this property here, it's a brand new fourplex just outside of San Antonio, Texas. If you had 30% down on this property, which would be about $315,000, you'd have $0 of initial repair costs because this is a brand new property. Your closing costs would be about $14,000. So all in, you're looking at about $329,000. If you were just putting 30% down, now your situation could be a little bit different. The gross rent of this property is going to bring in $6,600. And when you factor in, so Reed's company can get a 4.75% interest rate for anyone putting 30% or more down on these new build fourplexes, which is just an unheard of interest rate right now in this market. And when you account that interest rate, your taxes, your insurance, a management fee, obviously, since you'd have to be paying a property manager, which ours is 8% of the monthly rent. We only charge that fee while the property has a tenant in there. You do not get charged a management fee if the property is vacant. When you account for the HOA, the utilities, landscaping, every single thing you could think of, your fixed expenses would be about $5,816 a month, which means your monthly cash flow would be about $783 a month. And remember, that's with only 30% down. Someone could be selling something for, $900,000, and you have $600,000 worth of equity in there that you're trying to exchange, and you go put that 600 into this property here, and now you're putting over 50% down, and your monthly income could be a lot higher than that $783 a month. But this is just an example of a property that's brand new, where we can get really lucrative financing deals of 4.75%. There's a potential as well, if you purchase this property with Marshall Reddick, you could get a free year of property management. And this property comes with all the builder warranties that any new build property would come with. They're usually 10-year warranties that would cover the roof, the foundation, all the nuts and bolts of the property. And you're buying something brand new, and you're buying something in a new up and coming community that's going to have a good appreciation over time, really good tenant type, and obviously us managing it, you'll be having a very good manager. So that's just an example of a property that you could potentially upleg to. As always, we are an educational based company, so we love to educate our clients just on real estate investing. We're not really trying to sell you anything. We're all about your goals and making sure that you're making the best decision possible for your goals. So I always tell all my clients to download our free property rating ebook. It goes over A, B, C class properties, luxury class properties, how we make those classifications. It's a really quick, easy read. It's about 25, 30 pages, and that's with really large font. And it just really goes over the foundation of Marshall Reddick and how we specifically identify and look for these good investment properties in these specific markets. As always, on our website, we have educational videos, articles, guides. We have thousands and thousands of webinars just like this, live presentations, PDFs from all of our vendors. So you could spend years on our educational part of our website. And I always encourage people to really, you know, if maybe they're thinking about doing an exchange or have a question about insurance or have a question about private financing or the Marshall Reddick Mortgage Fund, you can find every educational thing that you could think of on our website under www.marshallreddick.learn or .com/learn, or you could just go to the website, click on the Learn tab, click on Education, and it's got all the videos and webinars there for you. So like I said, we are an educational based company, and we just love to educate our clients to make the best decision. With that, I'm always available to schedule a complimentary consultation. Again, my name's AJ Bialik. I'm a real estate advisor here. My number and email are right there below, and would love to hear from you guys sometime. And we can get going on what your goals are and what you're trying to do, and point you in the right direction, and use our very large Marshall Reddick tool belt to make sure that you're talking to all the key players to make your goals happen. That's it for us. Everyone have a great night. Hope you're driving safe, and hope you made it home safe, and that everyone's staying dry out there. So you guys take care. Thanks for coming on the webinar tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I look forward to talking to all of you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, AJ.
Thank you, Erin.